Welcome to the Excellent Life Podcast, a podcast where you are inspired, motivated, and challenged to live a life of excellence. On the show, I will cover topics like created for excellence, keys to living an excellent life, and living your very best life. My special guests will also share from their wealth of experience the principles for living an excellent life. I'm your host, Bola Mateloko, and I'm so excited to be with you today. Welcome to episode 9 of the Excellent Life Podcast. As always, I am your host, Bola Mateloko, and I am super duper excited and delighted to be with you again today. The topic for today's show is maintaining healthy relationships. And I have a very, very special guest who will be joining me in this discussion. She's a certified relationship counselor and marriage coach. She has a heart for teaching young couples how to enjoy and not endure marriage. She believes that there will be a decline in mental health issues when marriages work better. She is the CEO of Rare Gems Counseling and Coaching and has over 16 years experience in couple counseling, actively working in our local church as the head of the marriage counseling department. Taya has worked with several couples over the years, helping them to get started in marriage with the right mindset and needed tools for success. She also volunteers at the Ikoyi Marriage Registry, where you will find her on Tuesday mornings, giving talks on principles for a successful marriage. Taya graduated from the Obafemi Awolowo University in 1991 with a degree in law and was called to the Nigerian bar in 1992. She worked in leading law firms before starting an active career in banking, which spanned over 18 years. She left banking to follow her passion in counseling in 2013. Taya holds an MBA from the Pan-African University and certifications in personal-centered counseling, relationship counseling, emotional intelligence, and psychology counseling. She's a certified Prepare Enrich marriage preparation facilitator and a Prepare Enrich mentor couple. Taya is an associate member of the Women in Business and Management and an NLP practitioner in training. Taya Aluko's mission is to help couples build solid foundations for healthy marriages so that they can flourish in life, the workplace, and society. She has been happily married to Jide Aluko for 22 years, and together they have 3 lovely children. Please join me in welcoming to the Excellent Life Podcast, my very own BFF and relationship guru, Taya Aluko, my BFF. So excited to finally be able to do this with you. It has been a long time coming.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited, I'm delighted, I'm looking forward to our conversation, and I'm absolutely glad, chuffed, to be joining the Hall of Fame of the Greats. Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure, such a pleasure to have you, my darling friend. So today, we are going to be talking about one of your favorite topics, relationships. I know you are so desirous of people having and maintaining healthy relationships. So today, we are talking about relationship. And my very first question to you is, what actually constitutes a healthy relationship?
First of all, let me thank you again, my BFF, Bolanle Pastor B, as we call you. Thank you for having me. Queen B. That's the new one.
Queen PB, actually.
Exactly, Queen PB. That's the new one that they gave you.
Yes, so my new name.
So thank you for having me, because it's really an honor when anybody invites you to come on their platform. It's really an honor and a privilege, and one that I don't take for granted at all. Regardless of the fact that we are BFFs, but it's still not something I take for granted. So I want to say
Oh, you're so welcome. And you are you have a lot to offer. So that's why we have you here on the Excellent Life podcast. So
thank you. So back to your question, what constitutes a healthy relationship? You know, when I think about healthy relationships, what really comes to my mind is the fact that in a healthy relationship, both parties are thriving. So both parties are thriving, and nobody is stifling the other.
Oh, wow.
And then you also look at the fact that the atmosphere in the home, because a lot of times you can tell a healthy relationship right by the atmosphere in the home. So it's an atmosphere that fosters growth. It's an atmosphere that fosters openness. It's an atmosphere that fosters honesty. And it's an atmosphere that fosters open communication. In other words, when you talk about healthy relationships, you're talking about relationships where the flow of communication is open. In other words, there's no topic that is hold bars in quotes or that we cannot off limits. That's the word. Thank you. And so for me, when I look at a healthy relationship, really and truly, it's about the fact that the people in it are thriving.
Oh, wow.
Because when we talk about healthy is something that is alive, that is living, that is growing, that is flourishing, that is thriving. So if you are in one, that means that you are flourishing, you're growing, you're thriving. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's perfect.
Yes.
Because as we all know, perfection is overrated. It's not about perfection. It's not about the fact that there are no arguments or fights, but that even with all of that, you are thriving as individuals in that relationship.
Absolutely. And it's so profound what you said about it doesn't have to be a perfect relationship, because I think 2 episodes ago, I was talking about excellence versus perfection. And one of the things I said is that, excellence is a work in progress. People think you have to be perfect, but, the most important thing about a relationship, from what I hear you saying, is that it's a commitment for people to work on it. I always say so. In any relationship, whether it's a marriage, whether it's, friendship, it's a commitment. 2 people making a commitment to work on it. And that's what really will put you into a place where you would have, a healthy relationship. So having said that, why exactly is it important for us to have healthy relationships?
It's over important to I can't even over stress. It's so important. And when I was thinking about it, first and foremost, the first thing that came to my mind was the fact that what is not healthy ultimately dies.
Ah, wow.
That's really, really, really the truth, that when something is existing in a state of unhealthiness, ultimately it will die. And so to keep our relationships from dying, it's important that they exist in a state of healthiness. It's so critical. You find out that the people who are in toxic relationships, somebody is dying daily.
Absolutely.
And if one person is dying daily, the relationship itself is dying, because the relationship is
a silent death.
It's a silent death. You don't even know you are dead. So people don't even know. So you have people who are walking dead. They are alive, they are breathing, but they are actually not really living, because that's not what life is. And so it's the fact that, when we don't have healthy relationships, then our relationships are really dying. And then you find out the second reason I would give is the fact that everybody in the home functions more optimally when the environment is healthy. So you find out that, let's say we start from husband and wife, if it's a husband and wife relationship, and then there are children in the mix as well. So when the atmosphere in that home is healthy, everybody who is feeding off that atmosphere and that environment, they are functioning optimally. They are more productive. Their stress levels are reduced. So you have that the fact that there's less stress. And we know, science tells us today in particularly that stress is the #1 causer of disease. So if we're eliminating stress, we're also eliminating the likelihood of becoming sick. And science has proved a lot of these things. But there's a research that I read up. I think it's a Harvard research, and it's called the longest study that ever existed. And they followed the lives of, I think, 200 and something Harvard students at the time. They were teenagers. They followed them for 70 something years.
Oh, wow.
The study is still ongoing. Study,
yeah.
Yes, the original, there are like, I think 7 of the original students that are in their 90s now. What they found was that the people who did best in life, who had the better quality of life, it boiled down to the quality of their relationships.
Oh, wow.
So the people with a better quality relationship, with a healthy relationship, they were the ones who thrived mentally, physically, and emotionally. So it's important that we exist in healthy relationships because our health, physical health depends on it. Our mental health depends on it.
Yes.
Our emotional health depends on it. And our spiritual health.
Yes, absolutely.
Our spiritual health. And I have found that there are people who have derailed spiritually simply because they were existing in a healthy relationship. So their relationship derailed the spiritual walk. Not 1, not 2, not 3 cases. So that's some of the reasons. I have quite a number of reasons, but I know that we can't exhaust everything. But if we're going to really look at it,
and it's really such a shame, because if you look at society as a whole, the level of dysfunctionality in society can be tied to relationships that people had in their lives that were not healthy, that kind of put them in a place where they now got into society and they couldn't function. Because of the level of dysfunctionality in their relationships, whether it was in the home, whether it was in a relationship they had that was not healthy, it really does have a way of impacting us, in every area of our lives. So the importance of having healthy relationships can really not be overstated, as you said, because I feel like that it becomes a foundation for every other thing that we do in life. I remember talking to someone the other day, and he was talking about someone, in executive management in his company, and the guy was having a rough time at work. He wasn't performing. His appraisals were, below what they would be normally. And then at some point they had to, calling him and talk to him and ask him, what exactly is going on with you? Only for them to find out that they had problems in his marriage. And because of that, he just could not function effectively, even at work. So that is the reality that once you have, dysfunctionality, you have stress in one relationship, it really can spill over to other relationships, in your life.
And it's amazing what you say, because, I work with couples. I find that a lot of times the things that people are going through in their current relationships is as a result of the dysfunctionality that existed in their family of origin that they haven't dealt with. So there are people who have grown up in an unhealthy relationship, and it's following them through life.
Yes, it's
without
baggage.
them even being aware.
I always call it baggage.
It's baggage.
And they carry that baggage from one relationship
and you think it's the norm. You think it's the norm. You don't know. Except you get into a place where you're able to do this self-awareness thing, self-discovery. How many people do that? But that's really the reality. You talked about the workplace. Society is also affected. So it's so critical.
And the danger of it is that, so I'm carrying baggage from one relationship into another relationship. And then that new relationship that hasn't done anything to me is actually suffering from the baggage that I'm carrying in from the previous relationship. And so from the very onset, that relationship does not stand a chance. Because of the stress of the baggage that I'm bringing in from the previous relationship.
Due to no fault of the people.
Yes,
So somebody else is suffering. It's like when the Bible says the sins of the father. So somebody else is suffering. And they know nothing.
For something they absolutely had nothing to do with. And I think this discussion actually flows into what I want us to talk about, which is the real dangers of being in an unhealthy relationship. I mean, in the past few weeks, we've seen a lot of incidences about abuse, going around in social media. And it's really something that really has to be addressed, because the danger, one of the dangers that I have seen with people in abusive relationship is the inability to actually get out of the relationship. And they find themselves in a situation where that toxic relationship actually now becomes a threat to their lives.
Yeah.
So I want us to spend a little bit of time to give our voice to this discussion that is ongoing about the prevalent dangers of being in an unhealthy relationship.
It's really not a good place to be at all. And my heart goes out to anyone who is faced with such a situation. And I just want to say that you don't have to die in silence, because help is available. Reach out. One of the things that we find is that people who are in unhealthy relations, toxic relationships, they tend to isolate themselves. And that is the worst thing that you can do. So that's really like one danger. The fact that you find people beginning to, when you need to reach out and cry, that's when you begin to isolate, because if you're in an abusive relationship, your abuser kind of begins to cut you off people. Cut people off you. And then even when that is not happening, you're in a state where you are second-guessing everything that you do. Your sense of identity disappears. Your sense of self-worth, you lose your self-esteem. So you're like, who are you? You don't even know who you are. You lose confidence in yourself. In a lot of cases, people lose their voice. And because you begin to see yourself,
as a relationship coach, because I'm trying to get into the mindset of someone in an abusive relationship, and what is it that really keeps them in that relationship? Because at times I think, is it a matter of, there's a sense of failure that they would feel in getting out of the relationship. I spoke to someone recently, and she was like, one of the things that played on her mind was she getting out of the relationship would be accepting failure, that relationship failed. So what can we talk a bit about the mindset of people in unhealthy relationships?
Wow. That's a very, very, very good question. And it's really so many things. So it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
But it's a combination of several things. And I think society has a lot, for us in Africa, for those who are in Africa, society has over the years, there's been this narrative of failure. You failed, particularly for a woman. If you're not able to keep your home, you're a failure. So there's that societal story that has been told over the years. But I believe also that there's more awareness now. But beyond that, there's also the fact that, it's not everyone that has options. Sometimes you're thinking, where do I go from here?
Yes.
How do I start all over again? What about my children? If there are children in the mix, and more often than not, there are. And then there's also the thing that, he will change. So you are there, you are praying and believing God that one day this person will change, but daily you are dying. And the change that a person will change is not in anybody's hands.
Yes.
So you don't have control over when they will change. You can't even change the person. The only person you can change is you. So there's that, the fact that society will judge. Society will say you didn't try. The fact that you yourself will judge yourself.
Yes.
You will feel like a failure.
As a failure.
Yes. So the society's judgment is one thing. Your judgment on yourself, which can be the hardest, even worse than societal judgment. Then there's this fact that, in a lot of cases, there's no family support. You hear families saying, stay and make your marriage work. What is it that they are doing to you that they've not done to another person? There's a movie that is out now, Blood Sisters. And I remember that scene, one of my, it's a favorite scene, but it's really not depicting positivity. The girl that was getting married was saying to her mom that he beats me. And the mother was like, so you want to call off this wedding because of one slap?
Yes. Can you imagine?
Are you okay? Because of one slap, you want to say you're not doing again. It's almost as if, what's the big deal there? It's almost as if, what's the big deal there?
Yeah, it's almost like we trivialize abuse in relationships. And when we do that, the person is dying, like you say, in the relationship, because they feel like if I speak out, someone is going to think that, what's the big deal about what you're going through? So
then there's also this thing of feeling like you're reporting. So you know how sometimes it's so heavy in the mouth to say, my wife, because it's not only men that abuse. My wife is abusing me. Or for the men, it's even more difficult.
It's more difficult.
Because then somebody's looking at you and like, look at you. And you call yourself a man. And the woman is finishing you with what daily. And so you can't say it anywhere. So, for the men, it's even more difficult.
I know, yeah.
And there are a lot of men who are facing verbal abuse, terrible verbal abuse. Sexual starvation is another way of abusing men.
Oh, wow. That's true. I never thought about that, but that's true. That's some level of abuse, because really, what is abuse? Abuse is about depriving somebody or treating them in a way that they should not be treated. So when you actually withhold things that you are supposed to give to each other in a relationship, then that is some level of abuse. Oh, wow. And it's so interesting because one of the things my next question was talking about specific things that we can do to make sure our relationships are healthy. And I want us to actually talk more, go a little bit away from like maybe the marriage relationship or husband and wife, and talk about even friends, brothers, family members, because I find that it's not an automatic that relationships work, whether because we are bound by blood or because we've known each other for a long time. I always think that we need to be able to work on our relationships and invest in our relationships in order for them to be healthy and thriving. So from your experience, let's even look at relationships in general now, not necessarily husband and wife. So me and you were friends. We know we kind of service our relationship, as it were, because I feel like any relationship that you don't invest in, it's really not going to bring you the joy or the benefit you want from that relationship. So let's, spend, some time to talk about that. What are the specific things that we can do in relationship?
Thank you, Bolande. So, for me, there's something that I always say, and I learned this along my journey of life. We're all on this journey of, becoming better and really fulfilling purpose and dying empty. And that is the fact that you can't give from a place of emptiness. You can't give what you don't have.
Oh, wow.
And so if we're going to invest in our relationships, you must first invest in yourself.
Wow.
So it's asking the critical questions, looking inwards and saying, who am I to relate with? Who am I to live with? How am I to live with? What am I bringing? What kind of energy do I give out? What attitude, what behavior, what is my speech like? How does my talking to people leave people feeling? What is the energy I carry around?
Wow.
So I can't say I want to invest in relationship and myself, I'm not even somebody anybody wants to relate with.
Wow, that's powerful.
I am it's so important. So we must always start with ourselves first.
Yeah.
Invest first in you and bring yourself to that place where if there are things you need to deal with them, work on yourself, become the best you, love yourself, appreciate yourself, embrace yourself. That puts you in a place to be able to then connect with other people. A lot of people have no social intelligence.
It's so interesting because, it's actually also a spiritual principle. The Bible says that if you want to have friends, show yourself friendly. Because I always hear people say to this thing, I don't have friends. Nobody wants to be my friend. But like you said, if you yourself are not someone that people would see and be like, oh my God, this person, they have something that will be of value if I'm in a relationship with them, then really, it's all about, looking inwards and looking at yourself, and seeing what is it that I have to offer in a relationship anyway. And it's so interesting because I normally do this affirmation at the end. And one of the affirmations I put down was that I am whole and I have wholesome relationships. Because it's really difficult for you to give of yourself, of whatever you have in a relationship, if you yourself don't have it. You know,
from
it's
a place
only
of
what
brokenness.
we can give.
Yeah.
You know, so
and this thing that you're saying, Bolanle, is so interesting because that very statement that you made, that people who have friends, that was a statement somebody made to me many years ago when I was doing my workers training in Freedom Hall. Yeah. And it was that same complaint. I would say, hey, people are not friendly here. People are not friendly. I don't even know the person who said it, but I never forget the word. She said, he who will have friends must show himself friendly.
Friendly, yes.
You that are looking for friends, who have you gone to be a friend to? It has stayed with me today. So I began to look at myself. So, oh, really? Could it be because me, myself, I've not even, I'm somehow. So I looked inwards to see, have I put up a wall? Am I being aloof? Is it that why people are not friendly towards me?
Wow.
So it must always, there's always a questioning and a reflection that we need to do to just even see ourselves the way we are. And it's not because we want to begin to judge or condemn ourselves, but it's because we want to put ourselves on the right track. So it's never a judgment exercise.
And that's so true. And I think one of the other things that is so important in having a healthy relationship and maintaining it is shared values. Because I find that if people don't share the same values, it's going to be very difficult for them to have a relationship. Because even just taking my own example, when I got married, I believe that it was our shared values that helped us weather the storms we faced in our relationship, even in the early stages of our relationship, because your values are what determine your choices. Your values are what determines what is important to you. So for instance, if I'm friends with you and something is important to me and it's not really that important to you, I think it's going to affect the way we relate one with another. So it's so important for us to, have the same values, maybe not identical values, but the things that are most important to one person in a relationship should also be that much important to the other person, because that is really what will be the basis for having and maintaining a healthy relationship.
Yeah, and it's important to say that when we're talking about marital relationship now, values critical.
Very
more important than love values. I mean, we are finding out now, with the benefit of hindsight, and that's what the upcoming generation can benefit. The things that we have discovered with the benefit of hindsight, they don't need to make the same mistakes. Values are more important than love. Because as you know, Bolanle, you have been married almost 30 years. And even me, I'm your junior in marriage, but we know that love, it has wings.
Yes.
It flies away.
But I always say that love is not a feeling anyway. Love is commitment. It's a commitment. Yes.
And then when you're now talking about so we said, let's not restrict it to marital relationships. I find that when it's like relationships with your colleagues or with your siblings or things, then it's important that we might not always see eye to eye, but we must respect our difference.
Yes.
So respecting difference, knowing that difference is not a bad thing. Because, we can feel that because we are different, we cannot, we don't need to always see eye to eye. Difference is what makes us beautiful. God created us all unique. So and I think there's a maturity level that you need to have to be able to relate with somebody that you're different from. Absolutely. In a respectful manner.
Absolutely.
And that all comes from
and I don't think differences are, automatically a bad thing. Because, I feel like we complement each other in relationships. Because what I don't have, somebody else can bring into the relationship. So when we talk about strengths, we talk about weaknesses. So that's fine. But when I say values, do I mean what are the things that drive us in life? Those are very, very important that we be on the same page with that. But I mean, my strengths, I remember when I got married, so there's some things I felt my husband wasn't very good at, and then I would be so upset, and God would be like, but that's why you're there to compliment. so we can draw on each other's strengths in relationship.
Tell me about it.
Wrong about that. So, like for instance, I have
we are so different.
Who are very, very good at taking selfies. So when we go out, I don't bother because I know that they got my back.
They will do it. We are here.
Yes. So you selfie experts, you know yourself. So that is just really so good. Oh my God. I really honestly wish to go on and on. But I think what we're going to end up doing is we're going to probably have maintaining healthy relationships part 2 so that we can take off from where we stopped today. So I just want you to give me some closing thoughts. You'll be amazed how long we've been talking because we've just been having such a wonderful time. So my relationship guru, so tell me if someone is out there and they in a relationship, they're struggling in that relationship, what are some wise words that you can say to them as to how they can actually maintain and thrive in those relationships?
Well, the first thing I would say to anyone struggling is don't isolate yourself. Honestly, reach out, because I find out that when there's an outlet for you're able to express, people are actually able to function better. So because it's not in every case that you can leave. It's not in every case that you can leave, and it's not in every case that you should leave.
Yes.
But you should also be able to know how to cope with the situation that you are in for the period that you need to be there. So don't isolate yourself. So important. Reach out. There's a lot of professional counseling that you can get for yourself to bring yourself to that place where you are strong enough to face the issues that you are facing. And a lot of times, people who abuse, they tend to abuse when they see you as weaker. You just elevating your status, like coming from that place of weakness to a place of strength and empowerment, you already shift the balance of power. You shift the balance of power. So if that's even the only thing you can do, so important that you know that do not isolate yourself. And for people who are in relationships that there's no abuse, but you just want it to be better, there are a lot of things you can also do. And I'll just say one, the power of appreciation.
Oh, wow.
Learning not to take anything for granted. And so just getting into that intentional habit of constantly appreciating yourselves. You are creating an atmosphere that is allowing both of you to be happy mentally, to thrive. You're changing things in your home. Just little tweaks here and there.
It's so interesting. As you said that, as you were talking, I remember this thing we do in our coaching class. We call it acknowledge, appreciate, and affirm. And what it is that you acknowledge, we take turns in saying it to one another. We acknowledge each other, we affirm, and we appreciate each other. And what I find that it does is that it really helps you to really think, and then you really remember what this person, what they mean to you, because at times we tend to forget, things happen and you actually forget how much you appreciate the things that people in your life have done. So it's always good to take a moment to remember, to appreciate, to affirm. And so my closing words is to say to you, my BFF, I acknowledge, I appreciate, and I affirm you for all your goodness. Thank you so much, because even being a podcaster, you showed me the way. So I really, really, really thank you. I love you. You're my senior in that one.
Hey, you're my senior. You have more podcast downloads than me.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to have you. We didn't even talk about communication. So, we have to continue this conversation.
We have to come back. Communication is massive topic.
We definitely have to continue this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, such a pleasure. So as we close out the show today, we want to leave you with the following relationship affirmations. So I'm going to say it and then you will repeat it. But let's do that, right? That should be fun.
Yeah.
You are deserving of long-lasting, fulfilling relationships.
I am deserving of long-lasting, fulfilling relationships.
You have the power of love within you.
I have the power of love within me.
You attract good, loving, kind people into your life.
I attract good, loving, kind people into my life.
You are grateful for the relationships in your life.
I am grateful for the relationships in my life.
You give your relationships the attention they deserve.
I give my relationships the attention they deserve.
You are ready and open to receive love and blessings.
I am ready and open to receive love and blessings.
You are whole within yourself and you have wholesome relationships.
I am whole within myself and I have wholesome relationships.
Your relationships are loving and harmonious.
My relationships are loving and harmonious.
You have strong relationships built on trust and love.
I have strong relationships built on trust and love.
You feel loved, cherished, and secure in all your relationships.
I feel loved, cherished, and secure in all my relationships.
On the next episode of the Excellent Life podcast, I will be looking at the topic, the power of vision and imagination. Till then, bye for now, and God bless you. Thanks for joining me this week on the Excellent Life podcast. I trust that you have been inspired by the show today. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Bola Mataloko, the Excellent Life Coach. And be sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes so you never miss an episode. If you love the show, please leave a rating on iTunes so that I can continue to bring you many more life-changing episodes. Thank you for listening, and I will be with you in 2 weeks for another inspiring episode. Till then, remember, it is possible to live your very best life.